Hi, this is Morley, and this is the Wire. So, the UN is lending its conjecture as to what should be done on American soil in relation to the Portland protests. They're not protests. We all know that. Well, let's get into this thing and see what it says. Right on schedule, the United Nations is intervening in U.S. domestic affairs, claiming Trump has no right to defend cities against left-wing terrorists. The United Nations has decided to side with Antifa and intervene in U.S. domestic affairs, condemning President Donald Trump for defending American cities against left-wing terrorism. Liz Throssell, a UN human rights spokesperson, warned that unidentified federal agents are illegally detaining peaceful protesters, which may give rise to arbitrary detention and other human rights violations. The authorities should ensure that the federal and local security forces deployed are properly and clearly identified and would use force only when necessary, proportionately, and in accordance with international standards, she said. The UN did not condemn the mass violence toward law enforcement initiated by left-wing terror groups. The UN did not denounce human rights abuses that Antifa and Black Lives Matter militants have inflicted throughout America, which has become a stealth form of genocide toward whites. Instead, the UN is rightly on time to defend the left-wing terror, to aid and abet the destruction of the United States from within, and to tear down the rule of law in America. It is now apparent that the foreign militaries and intelligence operations are behind the upheaval occurring in American cities, and these bad actors and governing bodies will clearly take advantage of the upheaval to take control and impose their will over the United States. As federal agents try to save their country from violent left-wing mobs, will the UN send troops into the U.S. to take out the federal agents to occupy America and let terror reign? Democrat governors and mayors openly invite terror and unrestrained human rights abuses. No one wants to see federal troops, Homeland Security officers, and Border and Custom Patrols going to war in American cities. But the Democrat governors and the mayors have left the federal government with no choice but to intervene in strategic and powerful ways to restore law and order. Federal agents have adapted new strategies to avoid doxing and to avoid large confrontations in city streets, protecting innocent lives as agents single out, detain, and prosecute violent criminals hiding within the mob. The inner cities are burning, and law enforcement is being overrun by racially charged left-wing anarchist mobs. Portland, Oregon Mayor Ted Wheeler has stood with the arsonists, looters, and violent criminals and domestic terrorists, watching his city go up in flames. Standing with the terrorists, Wheeler has called Trump's federal help an explicit abuse of power that puts federal officers and Oregonians in danger. He publicly stated that federal law enforcement should leave our city. These weak Democrat leaders have become the problem, openly permitting thugs to attack law enforcement, burn down businesses, and threaten people's lives. These unrestrained human rights abuses are being openly encouraged by mayors like Ted Wheeler. The streets of Portland look like a war zone, and state and federal property comes under threat. UN turns blind eye towards widespread human rights abuses initiated by Antifa and Black Lives Matter. 3 federal officers were defending the Hatfield Federal Courthouse were attacked by Antifa rioters. Department of Homeland Security official Richard Klein confirms that the officers were attacked by lasers. The officers have sustained permanent eye injuries from the attack. When officers responded to put out those fires, glass bottles were thrown and lasers, which can cause permanent blindness, were shined in their eyes, said Director Klein. We have 3 officers who currently have eye injuries, and they may not recover sight in those eyes from those laser attacks. Antifa also is using commercial fireworks to permanently injure or kill law enforcement. Antifa has also used doxing to punish and intimidate law enforcement officers and their families. Armed rioters sometimes emerge out of mobs and single out motorists sticking a gun to their chest. The UN has nothing to say about human rights abuses like these, which have gone on for multiple weeks across America. As soon as the U.S. federal agents move in to restore law and order, the UN is quick to condemn, fueling the flames of civil unrest and domestic terror throughout American cities. I mean, talk about a one-sided view. All they're concerned is with the overreach of the feds in this, but they have no concern for what the protesters are doing to people and businesses and private property. This is a travesty. Thank you very much for listening. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. God bless.